Last week we mentioned that one of the greatest struggles and challenges that a person working on their Bitachon must deal with is fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear and the worry of what might be. And we beat ourselves up. And we automatically think the worst. And the moment we get into a struggle situation, and we start to make our cheshbonot in our heads, we begin to create that fear within us to the worst and to the umpteenth degree. So last week we spoke about how to look fear in the eye and answer it with bitachon. Because the antithesis of fear is bitachon b'Hashem. And somehow or other, when a person fears, they forget Hashem. Because at that moment that the fear settles in, if my mind would be on who is running the show, and who is it that I'm in control of, and who is controlling the situation, and who is making everything happen, up until the very moment that the fear settled in, and whatever will come out from that point and on, if we're able to refocus and realize, En od milevado, and I'm able to grab onto the bitachon, and I'm able to realize that Hashem is the only one in control. And Hashem, I'm mevatel myself and all my chokhmot and all my efforts legamre in front of you. And I'm following you. Na'aseh v'nishma. Yancheni b'magle tzedek leman shimcha gadol. And I'm relying on you with full reliance that you're taking care of me. You're watching over me the way a father watches over his son. Kerachem aval banim ken terachem alai. And the way a father loves his son and watches his son and saves him, that's the way you're saving me, watching me, and leading me in a path that I have nothing to fear of, because you're protecting every step of the way. When fear settles in, you forgot Hashem. The moment I remember Hashem is the moment I forget the fear. I hope you just heard that. I hope better yet you just felt that. Because that is the real driving point that we're here, not just to learn. Bitachon is not about learning. Bitachon is not about just understanding. It's about living with it to the extent that you trained yourself. The great Reb Chatzkel used to say, Emunah and bitachon is like a muscle. You need to train it. You need to work it out. How do you develop a muscle? Through repetitions, through reps, like they say in the gym. How many reps? Repetition. Again and again and again. And I worked on that muscle and repeated that repetition again and again, and that is what makes the muscle tougher. That's what makes the muscle grow to the extent that now I know that that muscle was so well worked out, I can rely on it when I need the strength. That's emunah bitachon. It needs to be worked out like a muscle with repetition, so that when I come back to a situation that I need to draw on that muscle called bitachon, I know that it was so well worked out that I could rely on it for strength at the time that I need it most. Like a muscle. Unbelievable. So we go over it again and again, and we get it into our heads, and we get it into our bones, that there's no one else to rely on but Hashem. Hashem is the only one that makes decrees. Hashem is the only one that gives a birthday to the decree. He gives the time, He gives the place, He gives the moment. Why is a matzah 18 minutes? A matzah. 18-minute shmura matzah. And if that matzah was 18 minutes and 1 second, it's chametz. My gosh. Are you joking me? What's the difference? Come on, really. What is the difference between the matzah, which was 18 minutes, and 18 minutes and 1 second? If I would we do one of those fancy Coca-Cola, Pepsi taste tests. If I would blindfold you and put you, not blindfold you, but we put in front of you 2 matzot, and I would blindfold you and I'd have you taste the 18-minute matzah and the 18-minute 1 second matzah. Would you be able to tell the difference? Buddy, you wouldn't have a shot. Matter of fact, not only wouldn't you have a shot at those 2 matzot to tell differences, but even if I take the blindfold off and I put it in front of you, the 18-minute and the 18-minute 1 second matzah, even would you be able to tell the difference? Not in a million years. But yet, one is mitzvah deoraita, and the other one is karet. Chametz. And what's the difference between the two? 1 second. You know what that's coming to teach you? Borei Olam's coming to teach us something. Because when you eat those matzahs, you're supposed to remember the minute we left Egypt. Mish'arotam sirurot b'simnotam al shechmam. Yeah. These were the matzahs that we had on our shoulder when we were walking out the gates of Egypt. And therefore that matzah is 18 minutes, and it's not 18 minutes and 1 second, because Hashem wouldn't let you remain in Egypt not even 1 second longer than you have to. I made a decree, says Borei Olam, 18 minutes. I won't let you stay another second. Because that 1 more second, I cry over that second more than you do. Because I feel every minute that you're in your difficulty. Anoichi imcha batzara. I'm with you. I'm in it with you. I'm carrying you. I'm crying with you. I am literally sovel with you, says Abba. I took every whip in Egypt with my children. I felt the tar pits with my children. I went through 210 years with my children. Moshe Rabbeinu turns to Borei Olam and he says, Borei Olam, look, there's a Jewish baby inside the wall. They're using the babies for cement instead of bricks to be able to save mortar. They're using Jewish babies. Moshe runs and he grabs the baby and pulls him out of the wall and saves the baby. Borei Olam says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you think you're more merachem than me? You think your rachmanut is bigger than me? You think I cry on every single baby that's put into that wall? But I had a cheshbon with every baby that was put into that wall. And although I cried my heart out for every one of them, kiviyachol, don't think you have bigger rachmanut than me. There's no such thing as greater rachmanut than the Baal Harachamim, the El Rachum V'Chanun. Says Borei Olam, okay, Moshe, you think you have bigger rachmanut? You think you know my decree better? You think you're more merachem? Really? Than the Av Harachamim? You think you think that your efforts will be able to do a better job than the rachmanut of God Himself? That you're coming now to be mechadesh, some sort of effort that you think would bring out a better result? Okay, let's see what's going to happen with your results. You didn't trust my rachamim in this moment of difficulty. You thought that you were going to do something bigger and better. Let's see now where this effort is going to take you. And who was that baby? Who was the baby that Moshe pulled out of the wall? Micha. And this little boy Micha grew up and he walked around with Moshe Rabbeinu wherever Moshe Rabbeinu went. And sure enough, the big day came when it was time to leave Egypt. And Moshe Rabbeinu, while everybody else was chasing the money, Moshe Rabbeinu was looking for the mitzvot. And he ended up looking for the casket of Yosef HaTzadik. And nobody knew where it was. It's 210 years later. Till finally Moshe Rabbeinu finds the oldest woman living in history at that time. Later on to continue being the oldest woman living in history, none other than Serach bat Asher. And he asks her, where did they hide it? And she gives him the secret. They hid the Atzmot Yosef at the bottom of the Nile in order to fudge the truth so that nobody knows that there was a Jew once upon a time in Egypt that was the national hero that saved the entire country. Like this, they don't look bad in trying to explain how in the world did they take the national hero's kids and grandchildren and throw them into tar pits and turn them into slaves. So they dropped Yosef's body in the bottom of the Nile River. Moshe Rabbeinu runs to the Nile River, and how is he going to get the casket out from the bottom of the river? So he writes on a piece of parchment, a kemeah. He writes a piece of parchment. He writes Ale Shor, come up Shor, come up. When Yosef was called the ox by Yaakov. Yosef was Domeh L'Shor. And Moshe Rabbeinu drops the piece of paper, the parchment, the kemeah, into the Nile, and a miracle took place. And the Aron of Yosef began to levitate and float all the way up to the top of the Nile River. And it was at that point that Moshe jumps in and grabs the Atzmot Yosef. And this little boy, Micha, who followed Moshe everywhere, because Moshe saved his life by pulling him out of the bricks, that boy, Micha, ended up taking the little piece of paper floating on the Nile that said on it, Ale Shor. And what happened? They leave Egypt. They go out into the Midbar. They come to Har Sinai. Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to Shamayim 40 days and 40 nights. The Jewish people miscount by 6 hours. They start to be mishtolel. They start to dance around. Yetzer Hara was dancing in between them. Suddenly they start feeling the urge for all different types of terrible averot. And at that moment, the husbands run home and they push their wives to give him the gold. The wives don't want to give him the gold. The husbands bring their own gold. They fill up a molten pot of gold. And at that minute, what happens? This kid, Micha, pulls out the kemeah that was written by Moshe Rabbeinu that said on it, Ale Shor. And he threw it into the pot, and what came out? A golden calf. And Borei Olam says, now you get it? Wouldn't it have been better to keep this kid in the wall? You thought you were smarter than me? You thought you had more rahmanut? You thought that your actions were going to somehow or other do better in the situation than the rahmanut of God himself? And it's with this that we scream out an amazing Yesod HaBitachon that so many times people think, I have to do ishtadlut. Yes, you do. You have to do ishtadlut. And we need to learn what it means to do ishtadlut. We need to learn what's the difference between doing ishtadlut and acting out of fear to go out and rely on your own efforts and your own strength and your own connections to ward off the fear and say, I'm going to do something to take care of this situation. And the guy ends up running to everyone and everything but Hashem. And you know what Hashem does then? Hashem says, hey, you ran and did everything. You spoke to everybody. And you didn't come to me. So the very actions that you did, I'm going to show you. Not only didn't they help save you, but they made things worse. The way the Navi Yeshaya explains it, according to the Bet HaLevi, is that people constantly, in their moment of difficulty, they think that they're going to run and do, and they're going to run and figure out, they're going to run and cure. And what they don't realize is all their actions end up working against them because they forgot God, relying only on themselves and the people they know. And the mashal that the Navi gives is a powerful one. The mashal was the guy that was really hungry. And he was running and he was looking. And he finds the eggs. And he rubs the eggs and warms the eggs. And takes care of the eggs. And literally does everything and anything he could till finally the egg will hatch. Little did he know. He thought these were chicken eggs. These were snake eggs. And he warms him. He does everything. He cultivates him. He does everything of the process, I would assume, of what it takes to hatch eggs, right? Till finally the egg hatches. All his kohot and all his efforts ended up hatching an egg that the tzifoni nahash comes popping out of and bites him. That's the way the Navi, Yeshaya, describes the concept of a person who relies on himself and his own skills and his own efforts and his own protexia and his own strength and his own hookups and his own people. And all those efforts, Hashem wants to teach us a lesson. Hashem wants to show us the only one you can rely on is Him. The only one you could really trust is Him. You think you're going to pull out of this situation on your own. You think you're going to be you think you're smarter than God. You think you're more tactful than God. You think you're more Rahman than God. He's Abba. He knows how to take care of situations better than anybody. But we're acting out of fear instead of acting out of trust. And because of that, we go and we do all these actions thinking we're helping the situation. And we overdo it to the extent that we try to control the situation. And anyone that steps in our way will crush him. Because we're controlling the situation to make sure we get the result and the outcome that we're working for. And little do we realize that the more we do and the more we push and the more we squeeze, the more we end up setting up the hatching of the snake that comes back to bite us. The words of the Yeshayahu Navi. Unbelievable. And therefore, comes the Bet HaLevi again in his intro, and he opens up to us the Yisodot, the Bitachon that's going to be explained to us now by Chobat HaLevavot, by Rabbeinu Bachya. And he tells us, be smart, differentiate between hishtadlut, putting in effort, and acting out of fear to control situations by thinking, I'm going to get out of this. I came up with an escape plan, an exit plan that's going to save me. Buddy, the only one that's going to save you is Hashem. The only one that's going to save you is Hashem. I'm not saying to sit back on the couch and put your feet up. No, I'm not saying that. Of course you have to do ishtadlut, but it's with the knowledge that everything I'm doing is worthless. I'm only going through the motions because I'm required to act in a natural way. When a person is sick, they are required to go to the doctor because that's the natural way that one is supposed to react with when they're sick. But while you're in the doctor's office and while he is treating you, in the back of your mind, you're supposed to be saying, it's not the doctor that's curing me. It's not the medicine that he's giving me that is going to cure me. It is only Hashem. That's the difference between the guy that's acting out of hishtadlut and acting out of fear. Acting out of fear, you forgot Hashem. That's why you're fearing. And all the efforts you're doing is your escape plan, your parachute, your exit plan to control the situation and to crack that egg open as quick as you can because you're starving, thinking that all the efforts you're doing is great and I got it. It's okay, God. Thank you, but no thank you. Shalom, see you next year, Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. I got this. Right? The famous joke they say, the guy driving up and down the block looking for the parking spot. And he decides he's going to pray and he starts praying, God, I need a parking spot. And just then someone pulls out, God, it's all good. I found one. It's all good. Cancel that order. I found one. You found one. That's how foolish we look. That's how ridiculous we look like. When we think we're doing it, we think we're saving the situation, we think we're pulling off the escape plan, we think we're the one that pulls out the parachute. Meanwhile, we're rubbing on the egg that we think is a chicken, our salvation, and really it's the egg of a snake, which is going to turn around to make things worse. You just cultivated a snake. You just cultivated something to come back and bite you. Let go. Go back to the belief. That's emunah. Emunah is belief. And bitachon is action. That's the way the Chazon Ish explains the difference between emunah and bitachon. Emunah is the thought, the knowledge, the understanding and belief that everything is in Hashem's hands. And bitachon is the halacha lema'aseh of emunah. It's when you put it into play. It's when you actually put your emunah beliefs. Because emunah belief is great, but it's also premature until you use it. Emunah is the belief in your brain, but nothing happened yet. Nothing took place. But now to use those beliefs in a real halacha l'maaseh situation, that's bitachon. That's emunah beliefs applied real time. It's like the kid that was taught how to swim outside the water on a bench. And he was taught by the lifeguard every single stroke. And then, one day the kid decides, hey, I know how to swim. He jumps in the water and he practically drowns. Because what was taught to him was not yet experienced in a real situation of survival. He didn't learn how to use those strokes yet in the water. Emunah is learning the knowledge of belief in Hashem. But bitachon is to apply it. Like the Chazon Ish said, bitachon is the halacha lema'aseh of your emunah beliefs. I got to apply it. While I'm facing the fear, I got to look at it in the eye and I got to say, you don't know my daddy. Abba, my father's here. He's with me. He's holding my hand. He's protecting me. He loves me more than I know what love means. He's mirachem on me more than I know rachmanut. His rachmanut is beyond belief. Moshe Rabbeinu knew the secret. When he came as a great defense attorney, lahavdil, standing in front of Hashem, defending the Jewish people after the worst sin of history, when they went and fell to the golden calf, says the Gemara in Berachot, Moshe Rabbeinu told one thing to Borei Olam, and the next thing, and the next thing, and each thing Borei Olam swapped away, till finally Moshe turns to Hashem and says, Hashem, but I'm appealing to your rachmanut, because you're the Baal HaRachamim, and your mercy is unlimited. That's when the whole game turned around. That's when Borei Olam said, Salachti kidvarecha. You called them my rachamim. My mercy is unlimited, beyond anything you understand as a human being. And the minute you cry out for my rachmanut, I become daddy. I become daddy, no matter what you did. Remember last week? Yeah, sure, yeah. I'm with you after you sinned the first time. I'm with you after you sinned the second time. And even though Moshe went to Egypt and said, yeah, shalachani, Borei Olam was still whispering in his ear, yeah, sure, yeah, I'm still with them, even the second time, the third time, and the 15th time, and I'm with you. Because you have no idea what my Rachmanut is. My Rachmanut is beyond measure. Beyond measure. Unbelievable. If you would know that, your bitachon would be iron. Because you're hooked up not with the President of the United States. Joke. Not with a king, not with Bill Gates, not with the people that you think are powerful. You're hooked up with Abba Melech Malchei HaMelachim. He's the one that makes the gezerah. He is the one that makes the decree. He says how long. He says when it starts. He says when it ends. And nobody can change it but you. If you call on his Rachmanut and you believe in it. If you believe in the Rachmanut, you activated it. And then he pours it down on you in return. That's bitachon. I'm baiteach in you, Abba. We're real bitachon. That you're the only one that made the decree and put me in it. And I trust in you and I rely on you. That you're taking care of me while I'm going through the decree. And your mercy is bubble wrapped around me every step of the way. Because you're my father and I'm holding your hand like a little boy walking with daddy and completely relying on him and trusting him that he's walking me out of this forest. He's going to walk me out of this forest. And I'm following you out. Tancheni b'magle tzedek leman shimcha hagadol. Walk me out. I could feel your hand holding me. I could feel your arm around me, even in the darkest moments. Because you put me here. And why does it look so dark? And why does it look like, God forbid, there are other forces playing a role that I'm so scared of, and I don't want to be bit by them? Why does it look so real, that which I fear? And the answer is that Hashem, when He created the world, the Torah tells us at the end of the first day of creation, Vayerev vayiboker, Yom Echad. Yom Echad, that's not grammatically correct. It should have said Yom Rishon, the first day. Why does it say Yom Echad? You know, here's this question. Rashi. Ala Torah. Yom Echad. Should have said Yom Rishon. Says Rashi, no. Yom Echad. Because on that day, you were able to see the Yichud Hashem. Because He was the only one in the world on that day. With no other forces, no other powers. On the first day of creation, you saw the Yichud Hashem. He was the only one that existed on that day. Nothing else and no one else. And that's why that day was called Yom Echad. The day that His oneness was apparent with such clarity. Because when day 2 came, says Rabbeinu Bachya, when day 2 came, that's right, Rabbeinu Bachya, the Chobat HaLevavot. When day 2 came, Hashem created the angels. Hashem created the Mazalot. Hashem created the Koach of Zugot, the Shedim, the Koach HaTumah, the Ruach Ra'ah, and all the other Kochot in the world were created on day 2. Who created all these Kochot? Hashem. Why did Hashem create all these Kochot, says Rabbeinu Bachya? In order to create a mirage. That it should appear and look like that there are other forces in the world other than God in order to test you if you really believe en od milavado. All the witchcraft, all the shedim were created on day 2 to try to mislead you to think that there is a number 2 in the world to actually challenge Yom Echad, to challenge Yichud Hashem, to challenge Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Comes day 2 and says, no, not Echad, 2. There are more forces in the world. We also exist. Come, let me show you the Koach HaTum'ah. Let me show you the Mazikim, the Shedim. Let me show you all the other forces that appear to have power and Koach, witchcraft. And because of that, writes Rabbeinu Bachya, on day 2, the alternate or ulterior forces were created. And that's why the Gemara on Pesachim tells us, don't do things in twos. Because if you do things in twos, it attracts the Shedim. Why does it attract the Shedim? The answer is because they were created on day 2. They loved the number 2 because their whole existence was only to challenge the number 1. And that's why Hashem also created on day 2 Gehenam. Day 2. You know what was created on day 2 also? Gehenam. Because anyone that falls to the mirage of the number 2s in the world, God forbid, that's what happens. That's where they end up. Because you chased the mirage and the illusion of other powers, and you didn't realize that the only one that was really power was only Hashem. And that is the reason why on day 2, Hashem also created machloket, where He divided and split the rakia between the upper heavens and the lower heavens. That's why day 2 stands for machloket, because at the end of the day, it's the machloket of 2 sides. And which side is right? And that is the challenge of Emunah and Bitachon, created on day 2. The machloket of sides. Ki'ilu, as if that there exists another side outside of God. It's all day 2. It's all the test. It's all the mirage. And every day we're tested on this test to see, are you going to remember Yom Echad? Are you holding still in day 2? Are you still holding and thinking that there are other forces out there that can help you, other people out there that can help you, other hookups out there that can help you, other cheshbonot or thoughts that can help you? And you find out at the end of the day that the more you try to lean on those, the more the egg of the snake will hatch. Unbelievable. So this, we want to go another few lines in the words now, Rabbeinu Bachya, that we got the intro. It says Rabbeinu Bachya, the next few lines, Uba'avor, sheyesh bo min ha'aliyot hagdolot b'inyan ha'torah b'inyan ha'olam. We need to give special attention to the study of Bitachon, because without this study, like we mentioned earlier, the concept that Reb Chatzluk taught us, that Bitachon is like a muscle, and it gets stronger and stronger the more reps, the more repetitions that you train yourself again and again to be able to react with it in the right way at the time that you need it most. Because this literally is going to be the great benefit that's going to be brought out by the Bitachon, and that's why you got to study it. Page 4. You got to study it really well so that it'll be there for you, and you'll be able to rely on it and its strength at the time that you need it most, because this is the best medicine, the right reaction. It should become like a reflex that when a person is in a challenge, quickly jump to Hashem, quickly scream to Hashem, before anything else, before anyone else, so you don't get missiled, so you don't fall for the mirage, so you don't fall for the zugot, so you don't fall for the number two. You could stick with Hashem Echad, Ushmo Echad. And therefore he says, and the benefit of the person who really studies the Torah and the observance of Bitachon is mehen minuchat nafsho. It's a peace of mind. Even in the toughest moments, I'm holding on to Daddy's hand. I'm reliant on Him. He's taking care of my problems for me. He's taking care of me because I'm His son and He loves me. Ubitchono al Elohav yidbarach. And the reliance on Hashem at that moment that I need help. Kemo sheha'eved chayav livtoach al adonav. Like the Eved, the servant, that relies completely on his master for his breakfast, for his lunch, for his supper, for his tools, for his board, his room and board, the place he sleeps at night, the food he eats by day, everything. The Eved relies on the master for everything. And that simplicity of reliance is for us a study of what he calls the Torah of Bitachon. The Chazon Ish called it the halacha lema'aseh of your beliefs. It's not enough for the belief to be in the brain or even in the heart. It has to be applied and executed for real. This is the journey we're going to take together, Bitachon. And the more you work out this muscle, the more you realize that he's closer than you think. He is so close every moment that he's literally at the darkest of moments carrying you and you don't even realize it. You're talking to everybody else but him. And he tells you, Rochi, I love you so much, you're my son. I'm saving you the way a father saves a son, b'sheket, in a way that you don't have to be sovel, not even an ounce more than what's needed. I put you in. I'm taking you out of this forest. And I won't let you suffer a second longer. I got you. Remember the 18-minute matzah. I got you. I will not. Hashem was ready to take them out in the middle of the night and turn the night to day because he wasn't going to let them suffer a second longer than they were needed to be in the situation they were in. And in that moment, Hashem says, Vayiritzuhu min habor. What does it say by Yosef? That when he was in the jail, when it was time for him to be taken out of his problem, they didn't just take him out, they ran him out. Says Hashem, the second I can get you out of there, I'll get you out of there. I'll run you out of your problem because I am suffering with you. And I feel you. And I just need you to turn to me. And cry out to me. And scream for the Rachmanut. And that will activate me to bring out the Rachmanut more than ever before. And that reliance on me will show me that the moment you relied on me was the moment that I showed you I'm Abba. And I was there all along, and I didn't let you stay in it a second later than you needed. We should be zochet to see and feel Abba's presence every moment, that bitachon becomes a reflex, that the moment we're in a situation that we need help, the first word out of our mouth is Abba.